Alright, what's up everybody? It's Carlos Collects Comics and I'm back with another Friday feature. This week, I'm going to be taking a break from giving lists of books that you should purchase, and instead, I'm going to give you a top 10 list of the best single issue comic stories. That's right, it's going to be a little bit different, but for the enjoyment of the hobby, if that's what you've been looking for, if you're interested at all in that topic, then this is the video for you. So stay tuned. Alright, so here we are. These are going to be the top 10 single issue comic stories. And I've picked these out. Now there are lists all over the internet for these, so if you are interested in more single issue comic stories, there's a bunch out there. But from across my own experiences, as well as other lists that I found that others have put out, I culled it down to just 10 issues where it's one single issue story, and I feel like these 10 just stand out, and some of them are some of the most iconic stories in comic history. So here we go. Starting with number 10, Ultimate Spider-Man Annual number 1, and the story within it is called Date Night. So this is a well-written story about the alienation and loneliness of adolescence, masked in a story about two characters who are trapped in their teen superhero lifestyles. Those two characters are Peter Parker and Kitty Pryde. And now, this story takes full advantage of the Ultimate Universe back at the turn of the century. The Ultimate Universe's distinct alternate reality. They were able to do things differently because it was basically the Marvel Universe, but rebooted. So in normal continuity, like in the Marvel 616, which is the main Marvel continuity, these two characters really don't have much interaction. Kitty Pryde has been linked with Colossus and Peter Wisdom, and I think, Iceman at one, different characters, but within the Ultimate Universe, they had the brilliant, I thought, idea to link her up with Peter Parker, and the two of them found common ground. They went out on a date, they did superhero fighting together, and this storyline continued on. So that's number 10 for my list of top 10 single issue comic stories. Well worth picking up. Number 9 on the list is also X-Men related, and coincidentally also features Kitty Pryde. It is Uncanny XMen Volume 1, number 143. Alright, it's called Guess What Just Came Down the Chimney. It's fairly derivative, but this issue captured my imagination as a young teenager because I would imagine myself and my own reaction if I were trapped in a huge X-Men mansion alone with a demonic creature that I had no idea about. Imagine doing that at only the age of 13. And yeah, I don't know if I would have made it, even with superpowers. This is a uniquely horror-tinged story that features the X-Men's youngest member at the time. And with the storytelling from Chris Claremont using very little words, and then the artwork from John Byrne, this was a classic story, but it often gets overlooked because it is a standalone comic. I liked it so much that I got an original copy of it signed by Claremont, and then I also got one of the reprints from the classic X-Men line, and also had him sign that, but kept that unslabbed for my own reading enjoyment. But I highly recommend that one. That's why it's number 9 on my top 10 list of single issue comic stories. Number 8 on the list is Captain America Volume 5, number 7. This is called Interlude, The Lonesome Death of Jack Monroe. This is a heartbreaking story that depicts Nomad, also known as Jack Monroe, and his descent into paranoia and eventual death at the hands of the story arc's villains. I won't give those away if you haven't read it, but this is the same Ed Brubaker written story arc that includes the introduction of the Winter Soldier and the revelation that Bucky is still alive and is functioning as an agent of a foreign power. This was perfectly written with great art, and it made for a great tension-breaking issue to fill in on a longtime Cap ally, and it really was a bit of a gut punch for anybody who grew up in the era when Nomad was first introduced. and he went through a couple of different iterations then. But this story, if you haven't read it, I highly recommend it because it's just so heartfelt and sad to watch it happen. But at the same time, it leaves impending dread, knowing that you're going to continue on with the story arc and see even further things happen to Captain America. Number 7 on my list is Nightwing Volume 2. Technically it's Volume 2 because the limited series would have been Volume 1. But it's Nightwing Volume 2, number 25, and it's called The Boys. All right, now during the Chuck Dixon and Scott McDaniel heyday on the Nightwing title, it had an unprecedented synergy and intertwining between the Batman family books. This particular issue showcases the brother relationship between Dick Grayson, Nightwing, and Tim Drake, who was the third Robin. It perfectly addresses many of the plot lines of that day across at least 3 titles, including the Robin series that was written by Dixon, the Nightwing series written by Dixon, and the Birds of Prey series that was also written by Dixon. And it ties in all these different ongoing storylines where it's basically a big brother hanging out with his little brother. And it really, they've been called the Bat Family for so long, but this is one of the issues, in just one issue, when we actually see it functioning as a real family minus Batman. And the neatest thing is you still feel Batman's presence just through through his current sidekick and a former sidekick. Number 6 on my list is one that I think most people would probably expect to be on any single issue comic story list, and that's G.I. Joe number 21, called The Silent Interlude. And this was the first of its kind. It was a single issue that features the first appearance of G.I. Joe villain Storm Shadow as he battles Snake Eyes man to man. Now the storytelling and pacing is brilliant and quick, but it also features strong character moments. Now this is an iconic issue, and it's one of the top 5 in the entire 155 issue run from the original Marvel series. It's gotten quite pricey, but you can still find them for under $200. Number 5 on my list is XFactor number 87, X-Aminations. Written as a break between story arcs, this single-issue story highlights a round of psychiatric evaluations by Doc Samson of that time's XFactor team roster. The interactions are priceless, with the standout being Pietro Maximoff, or Quicksilver's pitch-perfect explanation of how he views the world. All of this is written by Peter David, functioning at his finest, taking what could have been a mundane issue and turning it into, I think, one of the best of that run. And that's a highly underrated run when Havoc, Alex Summers, was leading the team along with Polaris, and it was being overseen as a government entity, a government-sanctioned mutant task force. And other standout characters like Strong Guy, Multiple Man, and then mixing in Quicksilver into the bunch, it reads amazingly. So I hope that you'll consider picking that one up as well. Number 4 on my list is Ultimate Spider-Man number 13, called Confessions. Peter Parker finally reveals his identity as Spider-Man to Mary Jane Watson, and this one location, one scene, single issue story is charming, intense, and memorable. The interplay with Aunt May is also especially humorous. Now, it perfectly illustrates why Brian Michael Bendis was hands down the best writer of that time period, because he's able to take what could have been a one-page story and expand it out to a full issue and still keep the reader completely engaged. That's why it made number 4 on my list. Number 3 on the list is Birds of Prey number 8, On Wings. Now, due to a lower print run, this book quickly became a much sought-after modern key, featuring the first date and first kiss between Dick Grayson, Nightwing, and Barbara Gordon, Oracle, at the time. That's what she was known as. She used to be Batgirl, but at this time she was Oracle. Chuck Dixon had perfectly laid out the budding romance across multiple books to lead up to this interaction between two characters that finally became a quasi-couple. So the ingenuity of having their date be a night of trapeze acrobatics at a circus was a particularly nice nod to the history of the two characters, and it made for a very heartfelt setting. The art by Greg Land also fits the story perfectly because I can't really imagine anybody else having drawn it as well as he did for that story, and it's well deserving of being number 3 on this list. So number 2, we're coming to the end. Number 2 is Ultimate X-Men number 41, called New Mutants Part 2. Now this one-off issue, also by Brian Michael Bendis, begins innocently enough, but very quickly takes a dark turn into a gut punch of a single issue story that showed the dark underbelly of mutant abilities manifesting for a young person. A teenage boy wakes up and realizes that his powers have awoken, but his mutation is that any living tissue within a certain radius decays rapidly from a pheromone that he releases. He loses his parents, his friends, his girlfriend, even plant and animal life. Terrified, he retreats to a cave in the nearby mountains where he is found by Wolverine, the one person whose mutant healing ability allows him to get close enough to the boy. They share a brief conversation until the boy realizes that Wolverine has come for one specific reason. And this is where this story is going to hit you right in the heart. Because Wolverine is there to ensure that nobody will ever know that a mutant was responsible for the 200 plus deaths that this child caused. And also, he's there to ensure that it can never happen again. The final page of the issue closes with Wolverine exiting the cave alone, but the haunting story is going to stick with you long after you've finished reading it. Number 1 on my list is probably going to be no surprise to anyone because it is Batman the Killing Joke. So it's one of the most iconic Batman stories of all time, and arguably the most iconic Joker story of all time. This instant classic forever changed Batman, the Joker, Batgirl, and Commissioner Gordon. The Joker's origin is revealed in flashback as he plots in present day to attempt to drive Jim Gordon to the brink of madness. This results in Barbara Gordon being shot, paralyzed, and violated, with Jim Gordon being forced to watch. Batman tracks Joker and Gordon to an abandoned amusement park, and in the end, almost gives in to his desire to end the Joker's life. But Gordon convinces him not to, and the issue ends disturbingly with Batman and the Joker laughing at one final joke together. This issue, published in prestige format, has had more than 20 printings and is a necessity in any Batman fan's collection. Just make sure you also pick up a reading copy for your enjoyment in case you decide to go for an early printing. So that's been my top 10 single issue comic stories, and I hope that these recommendations are going to bring enjoyment to you and add a little bit of fun to your collection. And hey, if you're a speculator or an investor, the neat thing about each of the ones that I've mentioned is that very few of them top $200 in value, even in a high grade. So I highly recommend picking them up just for the simple enjoyment of reading the story and enjoying the art. So hey, this has been Carlos Collects Comics. This has been another Friday feature. I'd encourage you to like this video. Leave a comment below if there's a single issue story that I left out that you think should be on this list. And above all, please consider subscribing because I've got a lot more content headed your way. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you later.